Okay, let's start. Welcome everyone. I'm here in Studio Schumacher, aka my house, and I think I'll stay here for a while, just like you probably. No worries. The Hot Politics Lab will continue every Friday, and we're back today with a talk by Robert Klemmensen. Uh, we're super happy to have Robert, a former colleague of ours, of Bert and me, and Bert's actually his PhD supervisor. Uh, Robert is a professor at the University of Southern Denmark and a highly original researcher who works on a large range of different topics, too many to keep track of. Very mundane, standard comparative politics work to, I don't know, behavioral genetics. Robert is really someone who's sort of an excellent fit with our lab, and I must say, being sort of our Bert's direct boss, and for me more an inspiration in the same department. I think somewhere along the lines you can consider yourself, Robert, as the godfather of the Hot Politics Lab.
Please don't hold me responsible for what you guys are doing. Please.
Yeah, there's just one thing. When do we get the money, Robert?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Without further ado, I will give the floor to Robert. His talk will be about 20 minutes. Then we'll do Q&A. You can type your questions into the Q&A box, and Bert will moderate these. Robert, I give you the floor.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pure pleasure. Today I'll just talk briefly about some of the stuff that we have been doing and that we are doing. And well, basically it's on elites, and we ask why they're different. And of course, also why we should care, right? I mean, because if they're different or if they aren't different, and if it doesn't really make a difference whether they are different or aren't different, I guess we should basically stop the talk now and just go for the virtual pub, right? So we just gotta know why we should care, and that is kind of like the agenda. So we start by asking, why should we care? So why should we care about elites at all? And should we? At least, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but the German perception of political psychology is that it has something to do with elections and only elections, and hence voters, right? But I guess, I mean, that at the end of the day, somebody is doing something in democracy, and that tends to be elites, right? I mean, they kind of run the show. That would be my argument. And so, what dimension should we focus on? Well, for better or for worse, I kind of like personality. I have no real good reasons why that would be super more important than so many other things we could have focused on, other than that we obviously do know that personality codes for tons of stuff and that it's pretty stable, right? So that is actually one of the things we can study meaningfully if we assume that personality is pretty stable over the lifetime. Then the personality of somebody who gets elected at election time should not be too different 3 years out from that election, and hence, to the extent that we can show that personality links up with behavior, we might get some understanding of what elites are doing while they are not competing for voters, right? And the next dimension I think is pretty important is morality or morals, or what you can call morality. And I guess the main reason why that is important is that right now, or at least during the last, let's say, decade, perhaps 20 years, we have seen this populist surge claiming that elites are from a different planet, basically. That they do not look like voters, that they are either way too rich, that they are that they embrace technological attitudes much more than the average population. And also, I guess that they have a moral outview or a moral outlook that is just fundamentally different from what we would observe among normal voters. And then just my 5 cents as the last point on what I think we need to know about elites. and I've already hinted at that, right? We need to know how elites behave when they're not under electoral scrutiny. We just basically have very bad and few answers to that right now. So why care about elites? Well, they run the show, right? They're kind of like, I mean, the prime minister is just the prime minister, and he or she takes decisions. And I actually think that there's a pretty big theoretical point to be made, something that we have overlooked, or partly overlooked, and that is for some reason we are, as political scientists, we are bleeding heart liberals, in that we always tend to think that losers are extremely important in forming political agendas, right? So there's this big literature coming out of Riker saying that losers are the ones who alter the status quo, right? And I guess it's because most political scientists are just left wing, and we like to side with the underdogs and the ones who haven't power, who do not have power. But I mean, this is just an observation that I cannot back up meaningfully with any thought, any type of data. But when I observe kind of like the political landscape throughout Europe and in the US, it seems to me that winners are pretty eager to alter institutions, right? And guess what? Winners can do shit, right? Winners can alter institutions, and they do it. We see that in Hungary, we see that in Poland, we see that in the US, we see that in the UK. It's not losers who are reforming the political agenda right now, it's winners. And they do it with power, they do not do it with words, right? I think that is in and of itself a pretty strong argument for understanding elites, or at least in a democracy where power alternates, right? So we need to have a grasp of what these representatives look like, and and the extent to which, and what their motivations are, and if and how they are different from the population. Because we have a pretty long track record by now showing that winners actually do stuff. Winners are not necessarily protecting the status quo as we would normally assume, coming from this Rikerian type of heuristics framework. Then I guess that there's also a somewhat overlooked point in what we do as political scientists, and that is that political representatives would not do much if there weren't a bureaucracy around. Hence, we probably also need to care about whether bureaucrats look like the population, or look like set up, so to say, in the same way as elected elites. Because at the end of the day, at least if we do see relative peaceful transitions of power, the ones who will remain, at least in most of the European state apparatus, would be bureaucrats, right? So they have been kind of left out of the equation until now, and we have done some work on those types just to see what they're like, and that is just, I mean, what I already said, right? Winners, they have proven to be willing to really change the status quo hard in order to re-win what is it called, elections, and to remain in power. And there's a big literature on that, right? I guess the clearest argument I've seen right now is actually in the Lewitsky and Seiblatt book, where there is a pretty interesting article, or a pretty interesting chapter, basically arguing that we have probably misunderstood, or not paid sufficient attention to persons. And there are, of course, good theoretical reasons for that, right? I mean, I grew up in political science in the late 90s, beginning of the zeros or noughts. And back then, the idea was that if you got the institutions right, once you had the institutions right, everything good would flow from them, irrespective of the individuals that populated these institutions. I guess that we are learning now in Europe that that's pretty wrong. right? I mean, guess what? Orban doesn't seem to worry too much about the status quo and about the legitimacy of institutions, as long as he can win, the next election, or as long as he can stack the deck to higher the probability of winning the next election. To just give a anecdotal evidence, I guess it's called. So why should we study personality? Well, we know from I don't know how many shelf kilometers of literature there is on all the sorts of aspects that personality affects or correlates with, in terms of behavior, in terms of political attitudes, in terms of risk taking, and whatever you can come up with, personality is probably responsible for variation across individuals. And morality, probably the same thing, right? We have some. This is not in this presentation, but we have actually a behavior genetics paper now showing that morality and personality seems to not be too highly correlated, and seems to have different genetic sources. So those are, in my humble view, two kind of good ways of beginning to understand how elites behave, right? And how they would be different. So some empirics. What have we done? Well, the first thing we did was that we conducted a survey among elected Danish MPs, and these are the first results. And what you see here is differences, or it's co-NDs, differences between the population and the MPs, right, on the different scales. And I guess it's fair to say that there's not huge differences between the, I think we have 120 MPs here out of 175. And we have a representative 2,500 person survey or voter survey that we compare the MPs with, and the personality measure is the 60-item Big Five measure that we just kind of stumbled into, and that we have just then stuck to when we first began this. And I guess that there's not too much of a surprise in what we see here, right? I mean, so MPs are, I don't know, can you see this little man, this little hand that I'm, okay. MPs tend to be much more extroverted than the average population. That is not too big of a surprise, right? I mean, if you want to get elected, it is pretty hard to be elected if you do not want to meet new people, right? And if you do not want to talk to them, and if you do not feel at ease with talking to them, right? Even in a apparently in a proportional system like the Danish. I mean, I would like to see some results on this from a first past the post system, where my expectation would be obviously that the extroversion, the average extroversion measure for MPs in the UK would probably be much higher than Denmark, because in these data we also have backbenchers, right? And then we also see, and I don't know whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, we also see that they are less emotionally stable or less neurotic than the average population, and then we basically see no difference between on the two other traits, right? Then we looked into, I mean, because we have this 60-item battery, we can subdivert, or we can look at some of the facets within the different dimensions, and I guess this is not too surprising either, that assertiveness, which is a subfacet of extroversion, on assertiveness, we actually do see that MPs are somewhat higher than the average population, and we should expect that as well, right? I mean, we should expect that if you run for office, you would want to have power. I mean, and you got to ask, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I mean, you got to ask yourself if you would vote for a politician who said that it's okay that even though I got the most votes, it's okay that the other guys that their preferences are being turned into policy. I guess most of us would not agree with that. I would not vote for such a politician, at least. And then we also do see that that MPs are much more, or not much, but are significantly more enthusiastic than the average voter, which I guess is not too surprising. So where does this leave us? This leaves us, I guess, with a set of results that are not too surprising. So we get extroverted elected, and we get people who strive for power elected. Until now, everything is fine. Then we did another study where we compared politicians to high-level bureaucrats. And the problem, we wanted to do that at the state level, but the problem was that I don't know how the Dutch administration is organized, but in Denmark we only get 22 ministries. And we know most, I mean, for better or for worse, my little brother is one of the top civil servants, and he would not like me to know what his personality how he scores on the Big Five, I guess, and neither would his friends. So we had to go somewhere else. So what we did was that we fielded a survey among all elected local council members in Denmark. There are 98. There are 98 municipalities, and I guess that unlike most of Europe, the Danish municipalities are actually a place where you get to take real decisions. So large part of the Danish welfare state is decentralized. So the municipalities actually spend just above half of all public consumption. So it's people with kind of like real political decision power, right? And at the same time, we surveyed the top 5% of each administration in each municipality to get at what top civil servants, or what we label top civil servants, how they would be different from the politicians. And then in an earlier version, we actually also had the population in there, but in the review process, the psychologists kind of like reminded us that there might be measurement problems, because we were not using the same inventory across samples. In the population, we had the 60-item measure, and here we're using a 30-item measure on politicians and bureaucrats. And guess what? The psychometrician who reviewed our paper was right in that we ran we ran various measurement invariance models, and could not reject that, which proved that we were actually measuring different stuff with the different questionnaires, or with the different batteries. So what does this show us? I guess this is somewhat more surprising. I don't know if you can really see what is going on, but I mean, you can see we've tried to make it ocean. So there's not much going on in pretty much everything, except for politicians and bureaucrats are pretty alike, right? Basically, It pretty much lines up. And again, I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. And I should just mention that the reason why we have so wide confidence intervals for the mayors is that we only have, I mean, there are 98 in total, and we have 46 here. Right? So 46 of the mayors are in our sample, but it of course produces some pretty wide, or compared to the other groups, it produces some pretty wide confidence intervals. I guess the most interesting finding we had was that apparently the bureaucrats down here, and it holds except for the mayors where the confidence intervals are so wide, are less emotionally stable or more neurotic, more neurotic than the politician. Right? To us, that was surprising, at least because one of the reasons why we keep on saying that bureaucrats are a good thing for democracy is that they are so extremely stable. Right? I'm not sure that is true in the Danish sample. The next thing we did was that we ran. So this was about personality. The next thing we did was that we have run a set of experiments to get at whether politicians and voters share the same type of, or would condemn some sort of moral transgression the same way. So the setup was that we varied the gender of a mayor. Hanne is kind of like a woman, and Hans is a man. And he or she either spent 2,000 Danish kroner on a hotel room during a business travel, and 2,000 Danish kroner is equivalent to, I just calculated, 266.43 euros to be exact. So either they did something bad on a business travel, or they did something really bad using the municipal credit card, buying personal items, right? I mean, basically going to the liquor store, buying for 250 something euros, and still making the claim. And to make things easy, so we have a representative sample of voters, and then we have 2,500 voters in total, and we have 1,200 council members. So to make things easy, I'm just going to show you one really simple regression where we pooled the cheating conditions and the gender conditions, right? So what we did was that we said, okay, first we pool the Hanne with the Hanne in the two conditions, and then we pool the cheating Hanne with the cheating Hans, right? And you just have to make a leap of faith. The results that I'm showing you also holds when we run them individually. I just didn't know how to meaningfully present 16 experiments, the results of 16 experiments to you. So I chose the easy way out. And I mean, believe me, the results hold. I can send you if you want to see 300 pages of R markdown output, I'm happy to send it to you. The interesting thing is that apparently voters do not, elites and voters do not blame or do not assign blame due to gender, at least not in Denmark. But if you cheat, if you use your credit card, if you are a man or a woman, doesn't matter to voters or to elites. But if you cheat in using your credit card for buying personal items, you are severely punished, right? And the punishment scale goes, I mean, here it's recoded 0 to 1, but it goes from either you should be dismissed to you should just have a sweet talk with one of the top bureaucrats. These results hold regardless of whatever you do to them. So we have also ran all sorts of interaction with gender. Women do not punish women harder. Men do not punish women harder. We have also run all sorts of interaction analysis on personality scales. It doesn't kill anything, and the interactions with the personality items remain insignificant. We have tested for whether the voter is a supporter of the what is it called, the mayor in the municipality, in the individual municipality where the experiment was run. No effects. We have checked whether the elite is part of the incumbent party or not. No effects. So we are pretty certain that these results are robust to whatever you might throw at it. And I guess the reason why we like these results is that there's a recent Karmani paper out in the HAPS saying that at least voters are not yet fed up with what they label technocratic politics, right? And if our results hold, what we are suggesting is that voters and elites do value moral transgressions to the same extent. You can also see there are no huge differences. They are not significantly different, those two coefficients. So I guess that the populists claim that the elites are some sort of immoral, detached entity running democracy does not hold, at least not in the Danish municipalities, right? And there are some problems that we can discuss later, obviously, with these kinds of results. So what do we need? What do we need now? Well, we need, at least for the bureaucrats and for the population, we need to show that the selection process actually selects for the traits, for traits and for motivations, right? Right now we are assuming that, and we can see that in end state, but we don't know what it is, so to say, in the institutions that are causing this filtering. I guess that is, to me, that is a pretty important thing to, understand. Then obviously we need to understand exactly how personality, morality, etc., any trait you can come up with is important to behavior. We just haven't done that yet, right? And there are some good reasons for that, and there are some bad reasons for that. One of the good reasons is obviously that one of the behaviors we're looking at is voting outcomes in legislatures, and in many Western European parliaments, there's just very, very strong party discipline. But I mean, there has to be other, there must be other behavior indicators we can use than just how MPs vote. And I guess we have been using that because it's easy to collect. Now we have to be a little bit, somewhat more creative, right? And finally, one of the, and I've discussed this with Bert earlier, and I still think it's true. Once we say trait, we also tend to say that situations would matter. But I can only think of two papers where I have seen interactions between traits and institutions, or something exogenous to personality that reported in the literature. One of them I don't believe. That's the interaction that's in the original Gerber paper in the APSR on personality, where for some magical reasons, blacks who are high on openness are Republicans because they search new ideas. That sounds a little post-hockey to me, but that might just be me. And the other interaction, which I do believe, is because I was present at the creation, is Baird's paper on when people become socialists. And it proves that people become socialists basically when they are sufficiently rich. That was my take-home point. Baird might have another interpretation of that interaction, but I really do mean that we have an extremely poor understanding of how these, in lack of a better term, deep-seated motivational factors interact with institutions, and we have been exceedingly bad at measuring them and at showing. I'm sorry, I went for too long. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Robert, for this excellent talk. Obviously, as somebody who you've been advising, it was sort of a trip down memory lane hearing you explain a certain thing. So it's great to have you back. And for those of you who are new, the idea is that you can ask questions to Robert via the Q&A, and I will read them out, and Robert will give answers. Robert, we already decided on the social media that this sounds a little post-hockey to me. It's a phrase we would like to take over in the lab as a thing we'd like. But
it's crazy. I mean, I can say this in this. I can say this in this. I mean, please don't. I mean, please edit that out. No. But I'm just saying. I mean, or it's surprising. Let's put it that way. Right? That if you're high on openness and you're black, so why doesn't it hold for Latinos? I mean, what is the theory? That's basically what I'm asking.
I guess it's fair to say, Robert, that it's at least an interaction that would need some independent pre-registered replication before we'd buy it. Yeah. Before we, I have a question for you. While other people might be deliberating on their questions. So, while I was a firm believer that personality was indeed exogenous to all sorts of things, in recent years I've come to doubt some of the strong claim that we have. And I was thinking about your extroversion results a little bit, sort of that politicians report that they are more extroverted. Is this do you think this is actual behavior, or could there be some sort of social desirability that you want to portray yourself as being outgoing, as being somebody who likes to take the stage because you feel that that's what you need to signal? I'm kind of asking this related to your behavior in the sense that and I know this personally, that you know a lot of these politicians. Do these scores make sense to you in a sense? Like, are they indeed really extroverted? But just for the context for other people, most of politicians are your former students because the Danish political science market is basically training politicians.
Okay, yeah, no, but I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, okay, so let me just backtrack just 2 seconds. I just had a chance to talk to Ionakis. He's an editor of Leadership Quarterly. You know him? He's from Lausanne. I mean, he is a personality fundamentalist in the sense that he just thinks that we should stick personality into our IV regression using personality as an instrument for whatever, right? I mean, I'm definitely not in that camp, right? But I mean, I must also say, I mean, and there's actually sometimes you should spend time reading political theorists or philosophers, because then there's the other extreme camp, which is Derek Parfit, who says that personality doesn't exist, and I don't believe that either. Right? And this is pretty commonsensical in the sense that somebody whose behavior you cannot predict based on personality, a person like that we would normally call insane, right? So when I claim I know you, Baird, what I'm claiming is that I have observed your behavior and I have observed your reactions in an environment for some years. Then I haven't seen you for some years closely, but I would still claim I know you because I can predict how you would react under pressure, for example, or how you would react when you are happy and stuff like that. So where does that put us? That is kind of like the conceptual question. So I'm a firm believer in that there must be something that is pretty constant within an individual. And when there's a fantastic recent paper out in American Sociological Review, which shows that people, for example, hold surprisingly constant values over their life course. I mean, the variation within person is, I think it's 100 times lower than the variation between person, right? So that would suggest that there is such a thing as personality. And Derek Parfit, he's dead now, unfortunately. But it was good that he wrote philosophy books. And Ionakis should probably not become a personality psychologist, right? Because of course it's not cut in stone. So I believe that there is such a thing as personality, and I believe it's pretty stable. That's the conceptual issue. Then there's the measurement issue. And I'm not sure, there might be some social desirability here, but I'm not sure it's a signaling problem we have, right? Because why would somebody from Danish People's Party signal to me that he is outgoing? I mean, I'm the only one who sees his result. I mean, what would the social consumption value be of signaling to me sitting in Odense with my small markdown open, trying to code his or her personality, that I should hang out more with radical right types, right? So I'm not sure that, at least in this setting, that we are getting. Of course there's noise, right? That is why we have error bars. Of course there's noise in the measure, but I'm not sure that we are getting. I'm not sure that here we are getting socially desirable, social desirable. What is it called? Answers. I'm much more worried about social desirable answers here, right? So can we imagine a politician who would say that I think women in this day and age, I think women should just be punished much harder than men. So when men cheat, it's much more. It's just boys will be boys type of argument, right? Here I worry about social desirability bias in these experiments. Was that sufficient answer, Ben?
Yeah, you convinced me. Okay, so the next, I'm very agreeable, Robert. So
But I should still answer your questions.
Okay, the next question is from Isabella Ribasso, a PhD student at the Department of Political Science at the University of Amsterdam. Thanks a lot, Robert, for this interesting talk. I was wondering if you'd look at whether certain personality traits help MPs to rise in the ranks. In other words, is extroversion or maybe conscientiousness higher among MPs further up the party list?
Yeah, I would expect so. But I would expect, again, for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason we always keep this point estimate, right? There's nothing sacred about that point estimate, right? But I would expect that an MP in the lower bound, in the lower end of this variation, would have a harder time climbing or making a career within a political party compared to an MP who's up here, right? We haven't done those studies for a number of reasons. While I said that we believe that personality is pretty stable across the life course of an individual, I would be uneasy. I'm not sure it would be advisable to have one measure of assertiveness, for example, and then use that to correlate with data on career paths. So it would require a lot of measurements of elites, right? And believe me, I mean, this wasn't. I mean, particularly this study wasn't fun to do because I first had a student call the NPs to remind them to answer our survey. Then I had a graduate student, Camilla. You remember Camilla? She won the right to call NPs. And then we did an experiment. They didn't reply when she called, and they replied when I called. So I spent almost 8 months collecting these data, and I'm never ever going to do it again because it was a hassle. I'm done with that. But in order to get at career paths within parties, it would probably require some sort of how do you put it? Overtime data. Right now, I mean, we're using these data right now because we have a pretty good personality measure. We're using these data right now to try and get at whether we can predict personality scores from text. So we are training an algorithm to see, because we can link the scores to individuals, and we know when they have talked. But then we ran into a problem, and that is that all the minutes that are published are edited so that they are real Danish, so to say. And that is a pretty big problem, actually. So we are trying now to get the raw files, the raw text files, including all the errors, because we believe that there's more of a personality signal in that compared to the nice, eloquent version that you get in the official menus. But that would be a way, right? Trying to see, can we measure personality? Can we get overtime personality measures through some other means? And obviously text analysis lends itself to that, right?
Thanks, Robert. Another question from Alex Shanskevich from University of Illinois. Thanks, Robert. Alex wonders if you observe any difference in the shape of the distribution of personality among elites rather than just mean differences. For example, are elites more polarized in openness, even though the mean is similar to the public?
Yeah, I must admit we haven't looked into that, but I would not expect so. But I can't. I mean, I will. I'm happy to look into it, and if you just send me an email. There it is. If you just send me an email, I'm happy to send you the distributions. But as far as I don't know, we haven't done it. Otherwise, I would have remembered. So I can't answer that. I would not expect so, but who knows? It's a good question.
Great. Yeah. Next question is from Wouter van den Broek from the University of Leuven. Thank you, Robert. Highly interesting. Do these personality traits affect also Do these personality effects also teach us something about citizens' participating directly in politics, you think, like through referendums or citizen forums, for example? Or do you think the elite is such a specific group that the differences are higher between elite and participants than between participating citizens and non-participants?
Yeah, no, but that's a good question. I mean, because obviously to become a politician, you have to begin somewhere, right? So what is a part, I mean, a super engaged participating citizen? Is that an almost politician? Or is it a citizen? I mean, there's some conceptual there's some conceptual grammar that we have to clear out before I can firmly answer that. But yes, we have a paper we did some years ago that is out in I think it's Political Studies, where we show that there are clear links between at the citizen level, that there are clear links between different personality types and different type of what we would call non-voting political behaviors. So personality is a pretty strong predictor of all sorts of associational participation and organizing behavior and stuff like that, right? We are working right now. We are finishing right now a paper on overconfidence, which that surprised us because the basic idea was that we wanted to show. I mean, there's this literature in economics arguing that that some people are overconfident, and overconfident just means that they think they know a lot of shit, and they are basically, I mean, they are firm believers in wrong stuff, right? So they think they know stuff, and they give the wrong answer, and then you ask them, how sure are you? And then they say, I'm 100% sure. So they are 100% sure that they are giving the right answer, even though the answer is wrong. It's also known as the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? So we basically wanted to show that the Dunning-Kruger effect was an effect of was a sub-trait was a personality trait. So we fielded a big survey. We actually have 2 samples by now, nationally representative samples that included Big 5 measures and overconfidence. And it just proves that the overconfident types are more willing to participate and that they are more extreme, and that it's not a personality trait. And we can show in our twin samples that they are not genetically, the personality traits and overconfidence is not genetically correlated, right? So they seem to be orthogonal. The reason for that long detour obviously is that, of course, I mean, even though I like personality, there might be more to explaining personal or individual behavior than just personality, right? So your question on whether personality is, or the way I understand your question is whether there might be other things than personality that explains behavior, and obviously that would be the short answer.
The next question is from Matthijs Roduin. Thank you for the interesting talk. I was wondering to what extent this is a story about descriptive representation. Studies in this field examine to what extent representatives are similar to voters, mostly in terms of socio-demographic variables such as gender, level of education, and age. Relatedly, studies of substantive representation examine to what extent politicians and citizens are similar regarding their attitudes. To what extent is your story an extension of this work? Instead, focusing more strongly on political psychology variables like personality, morality, and values.
No, but I would say, I mean, the easy answer, and I also that's my answer, I guess, is that this is a story about descriptive representation, right? Just adding political psychology variables. So and then of course why is that then important, right? I guess I try to make the claim that these variables are important because they deal with motivations for behavior. I'm not sure income does. I'm not sure education does to the same extent, at least. These variables are inherently psychological in their nature, and hence they should guide behavior under the strong assumption that your behavior is motivated by your motivations. I mean, that might be true, and it might not be true. But we cannot know if it is not true if we do not know what the motivations are.
Okay. Next question is for Gijs, who can speak freely.
Oh, thanks, Bert. Thanks, Robert. Great talk, very informative. I had a question about the experiment. So it seemed to me that the elites had somewhat of a stronger response than voters, and which I think you expected it to be opposite, right? And I had a suggestion here, or I'm just curious what you think of this. There's this literature in psychology about power priming, where people who are given power primes, they act more hypocritical.
Mm.
And so they become harsher of other people. I thought maybe that's actually an explanation for this difference here. Elites are then the ones who've received the power prime, they're elites, and voters are not. And they seem to be more hypocritical here and more harsh.
It could be. It could be. I mean, one of the things we have done is that we have pooled. I mean, basically across these dimensions, have pooled the full data set, including a dummy for whether you are in the elite sample or in the population sample, and it doesn't really alter much. We don't find a significant interaction with the experimental conditions and elites, right? Which we would expect. There is I mean, I guess now we are discussing nuances, right? Because, so what is the difference? I mean, how do we, my point is, how do we talk about this? So we can call it power priming, or we can call it social desirability. I'm not sure exactly what the difference, I mean, what the difference would be. I mean, I can see your point, Gijs, in that you would have a substantive type of explanation for why we see that difference, right? Whereas I would say, okay, so I mean, or if we call it social desirability, we would say, okay, so these are just people who would like to signal somehow that if I saw a colleague who cheated, I would be extremely harsh on him or her. The biggest problem I have here with this experiment is, of course, that it isn't incentivized. I mean, so it's basically cheap talk, right? And we thought about whether we should rerun the stuff where we could kind of punish people for giving for illicit true behavior, so to say. But it's just, I mean, we couldn't come up with anything smart. It's just exceedingly difficult to come up with a way to punish either punish or what is it called? Reward real behavior. Yeah.
Okay, that said, I think there are no more questions. Gijs, do you have another question, or should we round up?
Well, no, that would take too much time. Yeah, so let's round up. Yeah, I do the rounding up, right? Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, Robert. It was great having you. You will get our Hot Politics Lab coffee mug in appreciation of your work. The delivery date is highly uncertain, though.
Yes. Yeah, well, the Swedes are running our postal system, so I mean, we're used to it.
Okay. The Germans are running ours, I think so.
Oh, but that would, I mean, normally things should be on time then, right?
Well, you should ask a German person about Deutsche Bahn.
Okay.
Yeah, that gave me a totally different perspective. Anyway, what was I about to say? Oh yeah, so thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
It will hopefully somewhere this summer, so we'll be having a nice beer in Copenhagen from the Hot Politics Lab coffee mug.
Perfect.
Thanks. And then the final thing I wanted to say is the schedule for next week. Next week there is nothing. Unfortunately, you will have to entertain yourself for 1 hour on Friday because Bert and I are taking a holiday, not together. Just I mean, we do a lot of work together. We don't need to take a holiday together. But the week after, October 30, we have Isabella Rabasso and Neil Fushing giving 2 talks at the Hot Politics Lab, and so it's Graduate Friday again. PhD students have the opportunity to present their work. Neil Fushing will, like Robert today, talk about personality. His title of his presentation is Childhood Personality and Ideology: Evidence from 2 Conceptual Replications in the United Kingdom. Isabella Rabasso will talk about her new, her to be developed work on emotion framing in political communication. Then the week after that, we have Jennifer Jarrett giving a talk. The title is When Do People Correct Misinformation? And then the week after that, that's Friday, November 13, Ashley Jardina from Duke University on white identity politics. And we have the November 20, we have Ursula Hess talk about facial mimicry in social context. So lots of great talks coming up in the next few weeks, and I hope to see you all present there. It's always from 3 to 4 at this channel. See you hopefully soon.